We are back with another update on City Council here in Albuquerque. It's been a busy few weeks. The mayor and City Council have been working out the budget. More on that in a moment. But one of the biggest headlines was the sidewalk ordinance heard at the May 4th meeting. On a 6-3 vote, Council passed O2614. It gives police and city staff more power to ticket and arrest people for sitting, lying down, or sleeping on sidewalks in certain areas of the city. The ordinance, which was sponsored by District 2 Councilor Joaquin Baca, allows the mayor to basically create what they call enhanced service and safety zones. But honestly, the reality is much simpler. This ordinance limits free speech and criminalizes poverty and homelessness because it's written very broadly. And in fact, a ProPublica report in March showed that nearly half of the people in our Metro jail are already homeless or without shelter. And I've also heard directly from someone who was arrested and recently spent 23 hours a day in isolation. It's also worth mentioning that it's expensive and hard on people to move them around all the time, especially for veterans with PTSD, survivors of domestic violence, youth who maybe just came out of foster care, or others with unique health needs. And what do people on the ground say that we should actually be doing? Grassroots advocates, people who are working to make things better. Well, we need to invest in more and faster housing vouchers, temporary housing, and street outreach. It's pretty simple. By the way, I should mention that Mayor Keller can choose the safety zone in almost any part of the city, and while City Council does have to approve it, that zoning request does not have to be in an open meeting or agenda. So you might want to let your city councilor know that you don't support these zones, and that if they try to sneak one in, they can expect residents and voters to have something to say about it. Also, I'm a part of the New Mexico Stronger Together Coalition. I'm a volunteer there, and there's a forum on May 31st at the Central Unser Library where we'll hear more from advocates and directly from people without shelter about what actually helps. And yeah, if you're serious about this or you know someone serious about this, I hope you'll attend and push local media and your city councilor to be there too. All right, so second big chunk, let's talk about the city budget. First of all, I got to give a big thank you to all of the community advocates who attended City Council's budget meetings, wrote a letter, called counselors, shared with friends or family over the last few weeks, and especially big ups to DSA, ABQ, and the Albuquerque Transit Riders Union, and many others for showing up, which leads me to some good news. The mayor's proposed budget had included significant cuts to transit and Albuquerque Ride, but the vast majority of that was restored. So appreciate you all for speaking up. Transit is something that our families need, and investing in service and fair wages for bus drivers and other workers, yeah, that's a major win. Let's count it. Council also considered about 19 different changes before approving a full budget at the May 18th meeting. That included things like $1 million for cannabis, or from cannabis revenue for an additional basic income test program, around $500,000 for domestic violence, housing vouchers, and things like animal welfare services, park maintenance, cybersecurity, and support for the Inspector General's office. And they also moved $2 million in revenue from speed safety cameras or automated speed enforcement into funding crossing guards. That was about half of what they tried to move away from street upgrades originally. And that last line item drew some pushback from community advocates. They noted that the money is not steady because it depends on fines and fees, and it also takes away precious funding for street improvement projects that would make our roadways safer for all people. In not so good news, this is the ugly, the council approved over $3 million for clearing homeless camps while also cutting $1.5 million in housing vouchers. That's about 193 people losing their housing, including families with kids. So combined with that ordinance I mentioned earlier that stops sitting, standing, lying down, this means that it's even harder to get by, and a lot of people are going to continue to have their IDs and belongings thrown away and be targeted by police. And honestly, all of this is the same failed policy we've seen from the mayor and people around him over the last few years. And I would just identify the fact that Council President Clarissa Peña and Vice President Dan Champagne worked with Councilor Baca to move that sidewalk ordinance along. It doesn't solve problems, it's just weak leadership. More weak leadership, I should say. And if I had to offer a compliment to anyone on council that I tend to disagree with, it would actually be for Councilor Renee Graff in District 9, who has at least shown some willingness to work with my councilor, District 6 Councilor Nicole Rogers, on housing vouchers, reporting data about what works and doesn't work, and restoring services for kids in need. Last but not least, the budget is now on the mayor's desk, and he can choose to use line item veto power to strike an item before it goes to state for review. He does not have the power to reduce or increase the amounts, just remove it from the budget completely. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how he uses that. That's a recap. Of course, there's more, but if you have questions, thoughts, comments, as always, I welcome that.